When we think of the cradles of civilization, our minds usually jump straight to Mesopotamia and Egypt, right? But what if that's only part of the story? While the pyramids were rising in the desert, two other absolute giants were stirring in the east, and they were writing their own, completely different rules for how a civilization could work. Today, we're diving into the secrets of the silent Indus Valley and the epic, enduring empire of ancient China.
So let's just start with that question for a second. Really think about it. Imagine a civilization with cities so advanced they'd make other ancient cultures look primitive, but with no kings, no giant palaces, no treasure-filled tombs. That is the incredible puzzle of the Indus Valley Civilization. They built a world that basically challenges everything we think we know about ancient power structures.
For thousands of years, this entire civilization was basically a ghost. It was completely lost to history, just buried under layers and layers of earth. Then, in the 1920s, archaeologists started digging, and what they found? Well, it was absolutely breathtaking.
Just look at this. The level of urban planning here is mind-blowing. Cities like Mohenjo-Daro weren't just a jumble of streets. They were laid out on a perfect grid. But the real game changer? Citywide sanitation. We're talking individual houses with their own private toilets, all connected to a super sophisticated underground sewer system. To put that into perspective for you, that level of public hygiene wouldn't really be matched for thousands of years, not even by the Romans at their peak. It's just incredible.
And this is where the mystery gets really deep. Despite this insane level of organization, archaeologists have found 0 palaces. No massive temples, no royal tombs overflowing with gold, not even one giant statue of a king. It's like there's a complete blank where a ruler should be, which forces us to ask, how on earth did this society actually work? Who is in charge?
So how do they pull it off? Well, there are a couple of big theories. One idea is that, a government existed, but it was really subtle. Maybe a council of priests or powerful merchants who just didn't feel the need to build huge monuments to themselves. But the other, much more radical idea is that this was a genuinely egalitarian society, that it was held together by cooperation and shared cultural standards, not by a king's command. And honestly, the fact that they used the exact same brick size and weight system across hundreds and hundreds of miles, that points to a society built on some kind of powerful shared agreement.
Ultimately, the final answers are locked away in their writing. They left behind this beautiful, complex script with over 400 unique symbols, mostly found on these tiny seals. The problem? We can't read a single word of it. We've just never found a Rosetta Stone, that one key that would unlock the entire language. So until we do, the Indus Valley is going to remain one of history's greatest and most frustratingly silent civilizations.
Okay, so now we're going to journey from a civilization that fell silent to one that, frankly, never stopped talking. Over in the Yellow River Valley, another giant was rising, ancient China. And unlike the folks in the Indus Valley, they were obsessed with recording everything. This is where the silence is finally broken. This is where history starts to speak to us loud and clear.
So how do we hear them? We listen through these, the oracle bones. So Shang Dynasty kings would ask their ancestors questions about pretty much everything. Should we go to war? Will the harvest be good? Even, why does my tooth hurt? They'd have these questions carved right onto a tortoise shell or a cow bone. Then they'd apply a hot poker to it until it cracked, and a diviner would read the patterns to get the answers.
And here is the absolute kicker. The names of the Shang kings are carved right there on the bones, right next to their questions. This is it. This is how we know, with 100% certainty, that they were real people. This one discovery single-handedly moved an entire dynasty from the world of myth into documented, verifiable history. The silence was well and truly broken.
Now, after the Shang came the Zhou dynasty, which was the longest in all of Chinese history. But when their rule finally crumbled, China just plunged into centuries of absolute chaos and bloodshed. We call it the Warring States period. And yet, somehow, out of all this brutal violence came something truly incredible, a golden age of philosophy.
And that's because this one single question obsessed all of China's greatest thinkers. Their society was shattered, right? The world was broken, and everyone was desperately searching for a way to put it back together, to restore order and harmony. And this desperate search gave birth to 3 completely different, competing visions for the future.
So you had 3 main schools of thought. First, Confucius believed we could fix the world with morality, family loyalty, and respect, because deep down, people are good. Then you had the Taoists, who said basically the opposite. Society and its rules are the problem. The only way to find harmony is to retreat from all that and just go with the natural flow of the universe. But while those two ideas would go on to shape China's soul, it was the third philosophy, legalism, that would forge its body. Legalism argued that people are fundamentally selfish and lazy, and the only way to control them is with strict laws, harsh punishments, and absolute fear. In the state of Qin, they embraced legalism and turned themselves into an unstoppable war machine. In 221 BCE, their leader crushed all of his rivals and declared himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. The guy was a total tyrant, but he was also ruthlessly efficient. He unified China by force, standardizing everything from the writing system and money to the width of cart axles, making trade and travel consistent. And, of course, he connected existing fortifications to create the first version of the Great Wall.
Yeah, that kind of cruelty doesn't last long. The Qin dynasty collapsed after only 15 years. But its harsh, centralized foundation actually paved the way for one of the most brilliant and enduring eras in all of world history, the Han dynasty.
The Han dynasty ruled for over 400 years, and it's really here that the cultural DNA of modern China was forged. They dialed back the harshness of legalism and made Confucianism the official state ideology. They opened up the Silk Road, connecting East and West for the first time in a major way. Their legacy is so powerful that even today, China's largest ethnic group proudly calls themselves the Han people.
During this period, and the ones that followed, Chinese innovation just exploded, giving the world what we now call the four great inventions. Paper and printing. They made knowledge cheap and accessible to the masses for the first time. Gunpowder, first discovered by alchemists, would go on to change warfare forever. And the compass opened up the vast oceans to exploration. I mean, these weren't just Chinese inventions. These were technologies that would fundamentally reshape the entire planet.
So what we've seen are two very different paths to building a civilization. One was silent, mysterious, maybe even egalitarian. The other was powerful, documented, and built on an unshakable hierarchy. But both were ultimately about the collective, about absolute order, where the individual was just a tiny grain of sand in a massive machine. And yet, at the very same time, a completely different, and some might even say dangerous idea, was starting to take root over in the West. Join us next time as we sail to ancient Greece, where the individual finally takes center stage.